Does the future of the Maple Leafs hinge on the decision of Matt Sundin?
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Never a dull day in Leafland. Lots to get into today. We obviously are going to touch on what happened last night in the Stanley Cup playoffs and the night before, the water cooler conversation that was the Ducks OT winner and the controversy that had. We had finished yesterday's pod, and I think it was right towards the end of the third period, so we didn't quite get to touch on it. And about an hour after we finished recording, that goal happened. So we'll get into that. We'll definitely get into that. Matthews and Nylander apparently have spoken about their intentions on their belief of the future of the Maple Leafs organization, so we'll kind of unveil the new news there. But let's continue the front office chat, because that seems to be the number one talking point in Maple Leaf land right now, and for good reason. It kind of needs to get solved before we pick a direction or do anything with this Maple Leafs team. And kind of the topic du jour, Dave, sounds like the Maple Leafs are just waiting around, and a reason why we haven't heard any news on the front office decision is because they're waiting to hear back from Matt Sundin and whether or not he wants to be involved and how much he wants to be involved. What do you make of that?
This is one. The part here that's confusing to me is we have no idea what's been offered to Matt Sundin.
No.
Like, they're waiting. The way that Elliotte Friedman framed it is, if he's been contemplating a large role, then he had been hinted a report like that. Like, so initially it was like, oh, maybe it's like an advisory role, or something similar to maybe like a Shane Doan, Jason Spezza when he was initially brought in, like that type of role.
Right.
And it's like, maybe they're like, hey, you want to do more than that? And okay, I'm sure Matt Sundin has always been one to think about his family and the impact of taking on more work, and that's why he's been in Sweden for, all this time. But yeah, I don't know what to make of it really, just because like now you're putting into a tough position where it's like you're waiting for him. How long can they realistically continue to wait?
Yeah, and the other kind of perplexing part of this whole thing is Elliotte Friedman believes that Sundin's decision could shape the future of this front office. Now, it's a little bit of an ambiguous, phrase to throw out there. Does that mean that, if Sundin doesn't join, then they're going to obviously go in a different direction? But like, are they maybe deciding between two GMs, and one is, they believe will work better with Sundin at the helm. One would work better if Sundin was not in the mix. Like, this is where I'm kind of confused by this whole situation. How one guy who's never worked in an NHL front office before, never had this type of duties, how he possibly could have all of this power. And I get it. Matt Sundin is a god in the city of Toronto. He's the most beloved Maple Leaf maybe to ever live. It's certainly right there on the Mount Rushmore with like Dougie and Wendell, then what, Mats. It's like those are the three, and Sittler you could put as the fourth, as your Mount Rushmore of Maple Leafs. So look, I understand how his word and his stature could hold a lot of weight within that organization, but to be making like major decisions of front office personnel based on Matt Sundin and his standing with the organization is a little perplexing to me, right? Like I'm not quite sure why like there is so much hinging on Sundin. And I guess if he's going to be the president, like fill in as the Brendan Shanahan role, I suppose that would make a little bit more sense, because then maybe it's up to Sundin, and then he'll want some input on the GM position and you want to kind of hammer all those details out at once. Maybe you announce it all on one thing. If that's the case, I suppose that makes a little bit more sense. But, I just hate how ambiguous this whole situation is. We don't know anything, and it's really frustrating. And we were told we were supposed to get some answers late last week, and maybe they were nearing a decision, and now it's kind of being held hostage here because they're waiting to hear what Mats wants to do.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. There is what exactly does Matt Sundin like? What? When did this all? The curious part I have to all this is who reached out. I mean, I would assume the Leafs reached out to Matt Sundin, right? But to what degree did they initially reach out, and did they think, okay, maybe he is really considering joining, right? But to me, going after somebody who, as you said, doesn't have the experience that Matt Sundin has, it makes you really question the direction that they're currently going, and that they had all this experience before, and it worked for a good portion of it, and then they went with the inexperienced route with Kyle Dubas as the general manager, but they still had Shanahan in the president's role. We know how that kind of all played out, and it's just really strange that as much as I love Matt Sundin and what he provided as a player, we have seen how many teams have come and done this. The best example I have is the Vancouver Canucks when they brought in Trevor Linden.
Yeah, that's the first thing that popped in my mind too.
He was one. I think the Sabres did this as well, if I'm not mistaken, right? Where they had a former player as well.
Possibly.
I'm trying to think of who it was before. I'd have to go back.
Chuck there, Dave Andrewchuk.
Maybe it was. Oh, Pat LaFontaine. That's who.
Oh, LaFontaine.
Okay. He was there. I think he was only there for 3 months.
Yeah. Well, I know even right now in Vancouver, the Sedins are, involved in the front office in Vancouver. They don't have the, general manager or AGM title, but they are very much involved within the organization and development. And, is that maybe the role that's best suited for Sundin? Now, those guys are in Vancouver and living in Vancouver, and that's where they've established their roots. Their kids are born there, so they've kind of left Sweden and they're making Vancouver their home while doing all of this. Is Matt's willing to do the same? Because that's the other thing. I'm sure that's what they're waiting on. Does he want to make the move overseas? Because in an advisory role, he probably still could have done that in Sweden. He could have just hopped on a bird, flew in here for some big meetings that he had to do once every couple of weeks or whatever. But if he's going to be a president or some sort of vice president's role, be a high-ranking member within the organization, he's got to be in Toronto. He's got to be here and working with the Maple Leafs day in, day out, right? So I'm sure that's what they're waiting on to see if he's willing to do that, to move back over to North America and leave Sweden, leave his family and friends all behind, and leave the life that he's been living to come back into the swamp that is Toronto with the mess here and try and see if he can fix the Maple Leafs. I'm sure it's a tough decision. But it's one that he's got to hurry up and make soon, man. The NHL draft lottery is 2 weeks away, and we would like to have someone in place by then, I would imagine. So hopefully some answers come pretty darn soon. But the other thing that I don't quite understand is, why? Because again, Elliot Friedman said that Sundin, whether he is or isn't part of the plans, could shape, the front office. Did they not have a favorite at the general manager position? You know what I mean? Doesn't that make you kind of worry that they don't necessarily think that there's that they don't have the guy that will get it done and bring Toronto back to the promised land? Doesn't that kind of concern you a little bit when you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just I thought we thought that last week they were going to have somebody ready to go at the end of the week. Like I thought this was all pretty much ready to go. So, like, okay, maybe they're just doing some final due diligence. Now we're hearing, no, it's not necessarily the case. It's actually going to be going through Matt Sundin first to figure out what his plans are. And I'm like, how did that change like so much? Like, how did we go from having two guys being the finalists to now, oh, by the way, no, that's not what's happening right now. What's happening is Matt Sundin has to decide what he's going to do, and then we'll see what else the team is going to do.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know. I don't quite understand what's going on here, and I'm sure there's more to the story. And the Leafs aren't giving us the answers to the test, which is very Leafy of them, of course, to leave everything ambiguous. But hopefully soon we can get some answers here, because it's becoming increasingly frustrating what's going on, all the different news that we're hearing. Hopefully some resolution comes pretty darn soon. Regardless who's going to be in charge of the Maple Leafs, the GM, the president, whatever role, ends up getting filled, they're going to have an eye on the future and their eye on next year. William Nylander and Auston Matthews both spoke about their thoughts on the future of this team. We'll get into that on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. You're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. We need the right person to cut through the chaos. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listen to the show, we get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, with brand new episodes of the Locked On Leafs podcast, all the way through the playoffs, through the offseason, all the way up until next year. We are 365 here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, every Monday to Friday, brand new episodes, wherever you find your podcast, and also on YouTube. All right, Dave. So there's been a lot of discussion on what direction the Maple Leafs should go in next year. Sounds like both William Nylander and Auston Matthews believe that the group can get back on the horse and compete next year. Guess what? They believe they only need a couple more dogs up front and a couple of puck movers on the back end. And guess what, Dave? I would actually agree with that assessment. In a vacuum, I would. The problem is, how the heck are you going to get those, boys? That's the question. Like, yeah, of course. You get a couple of more, star players up front, couple dogs, couple Cale Makars on the back end. Yeah, I think that would definitely transform this team. But how you going to get it? Because you got no picks, no prospects to get it via trade. Have you looked at the free agent route? There's really no one there. Alex Tuch, Alex Tuch, good player. I don't think he's necessarily that transforming type talent that you're talking about. Anthony Mantha, Patrick Laine, Charlie Coyle, Tarasenko. You're bringing back Bobby McMahon. These are the forwards that we're talking about in free agency this year, Dave. Like, and defensively, it's Darren Radish, and then it's a steep drop off. Defenseman 3 or 4 on the board might be John Klingberg, just to go ahead and give you an idea for how terrible the defensive market's going to be this summer. So, yeah, I agree. They are maybe only 4 or 5 major pieces away. How the hell are you going to get those things? That's the issue. That is the big issue. So Nylander and Matthews can say all this, and they're not wrong. The problem is they got nothing and no means to go out and get those additions to make them a competitive club again next year. Am I right or wrong?
Well, and the other parts of this is, yeah, they want this, this, and that. Who are they telling this to? I'm assuming it's Keith Pelly, because are you going to go tell 2 guys currently in charge of the Leafs that may not actually potentially be a part of this once the new leadership structure comes into place?
Darren Dreger was on the Barn Burner podcast. Let me find out exactly what he said. I'll read it word for word. Quote, what I was told, William Nylander and Auston Matthews told both coach and management, look, we believe in this team. We got to add some players. We got to bring in a couple dogs up front, and we need 2 mobile defensemen. That's apparently what Nylander and Matthews said their assessment of the team was and how they can get back to being relevant moving forward. And again, I don't disagree. If you do add a couple dogs up front, a couple, mobile puck movers on the back end, sure. I think that you can get back into the dance, but that is it's a lot easier said than done, pretty much is what I'm getting at. And there's not any draft picks. There's not any, well, they might luck out and end up with the 5th overall pick, which they could dangle and possibly check off one of those boxes, but there's not a lot of picks. There's barely any prospects, and the free agent market is barren this year.
Yeah, I don't see, and look, maybe that's where the potential, we talked about this before with the pick, right? If they win the draft lottery, or don't lose the pick in the draft lottery, that could be a potential ticket that they can use to go and get what they need now.
Right.
But I think a lot of fans would also be like, yeah, but the idea of having a really good young player come into this organization, and you look at the talent that is available in the top 5, that's also an appetizing option as well, because we've seen where things are going right now in the NHL. How many teams right now are getting these younger guys coming in and being that, an impact right, maybe not right away for some teams, but for most teams, you're starting to see that. So, to me, that seems like the only this team. If I was management, I would be like, it's nice you guys are saying this, but also think about the lack of assets, because this team has double, triple, quadruple down on this core and the belief in this core, and it's led to the assets that would be able to get those pieces you want now around you. It's tougher to get that now unless we're willing to make bigger seismic changes that maybe the guys like Matthews and Nylander aren't maybe expecting to come.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how they're going to get it. Is the thing. Again, there's not much help to come from within either. Is the problem. Like you'll probably, I think Easton Cowan will take a step next year, right? After a full season in the NHL, you saw towards the end when he got those minutes, he did start to produce, which is good. So I do think he'll take a step next season. If he's healthy, I think he'll continue to take steps next season. But you're probably not going to, I mean, we said the same thing last year, but you're probably not going to get a 30-goal, 70 output from John Tavares. At some point, Father Time is going to come knocking on his door. Defensively, we know this team's an absolute mess, and they're returning the same 6 guys as of now. Obviously, they have a full offseason to change things. But it's just, from within, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot, right? Like you're pretty much hoping Ben Danford can come in and be a difference maker on the blue line right away. Like I don't think Ben Danford's going to come in and be Matthew Schaefer or Lane Hudson, or even, I don't even think he'll come in and be Cole Hudson, who looked pretty good in his couple of games in Washington. At the end of the day, he projects to be like a solid 3rd pair guy, and that's okay. That's fine for a late 1st round player to get a solid NHLer as a solid third pair defensively responsible player. But that's not what we're talking about. That's not, the puck moving mobile defenders that Auston Matthews and William Nylander are referring to that they believe they need. And it's total. I mean, that's 100% what they need. Like, you look at this year, part that plagued them so poorly is they couldn't get the puck either end. Like, they were turning it over constantly because they didn't have any puck movers. They couldn't make that first pass out the zone, and they couldn't get it into the hands of Nylander, couldn't get into the hands of Matthews for them to make their magic. It wasn't just missing out on Marner. Like Tanev, he always had a good first pass. Well, he missed most of the season, so he wasn't really there to do a whole lot. You had other guys lose a step. Seemed like, Morgan Rielly lost a step and wasn't as quick to get to pucks. Jake McCabe, kind of similar. And, there just wasn't a whole lot of depth back there. Benoit, grenade on his stick anytime he has the puck on him. So, it's not a secret that is definitely what they need to get better. Yes, it's not like Matthews and Nylander have split the atom with that enlightening, development. We all know this. How you going to get there is the big question. And it's not an easy path. It almost looks like an impossible path based on the cards that the new GM is going to be dealt. He's going to try. Seems like that's what the Maple Leafs want to do and are going to be telling the incomer to do. How they're going to do it? They better have a search firm on standby to search for answers for that, because I don't quite know. That will take some creativity, and we'll see who they bring in, see if they got it at the end of the day. We shall see. Anything else Leaf-wise that you saw kind of percolating out there?
No, it's been very quiet. I don't. It's not really anything. Not really anything I saw out there. I think there was a report that that Jason Spezza, they had potentially reached out to him. And I think
he said thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Ooh, I believe Morgan Rielly is going to the World Championships.
Oh, right.
That was confirmed today.
Yeah, that's good.
Rielly.
You see Team Canada, what they're adding to the World Championship roster?
They look pretty good.
Celebrini, I think we already knew Scheifele was planning to go, but Celebrini, Gavin McKenna.
Schaefer, Shafe Daddy going?
Yes, he is. Barzell's also going as well. I think Jet Greaves is expected to go as well.
Yep. Like Tavares, he's going?
I think I think his plan was for him to go. Yeah. That starts May 15th for those wondering. It's gonna be in Sweden. So
still a couple of weeks till they got to get out there. We'll see what other players become available when the first round's over. Sidney Crosby not available just yet. Staying alive against the Flyers, enforcing a Game 6 back in Philly. Let's take a break, though, because I want to get into that controversial overtime goal the other night between the Ducks and the Oilers and get your thoughts on it. So we'll do that next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. New sponsor alert. Thank you to Warby Parker for hopping on to the Locked On Leafs family. Spring is here. Weddings, trips, rooftop hangs, basically a lot more photos being taken. And if you wear glasses, you're wearing them at all those moments. So if you don't love your frames, you're going to feel it pretty quickly. That's where Warby Parker helps out. They've completely changed how easy it is to find glasses you actually like. Their virtual try-on lets you see how frames look on your face right in front of your phone. Just point your camera and you can try on tons of styles in real time. I took a peek. I saw them. I got them coming in the mail. I was able to try on different styles virtually and actually felt more confident in what I was choosing before. I ordered them. The frames, they look great. They feel like they're high quality. And I know that I'm going to get some good compliments on them. And honestly, for the price, it's hard to beat. Prescription glasses start at just $95, so you're not sacrificing style or quality, Warby Parker has everything in one place: glasses, sunglasses, contacts, even eye exams. So it's just simplifies everything for you. Glasses start at $95, including prescription lenses with anti-reflective, scratch-resistant coatings. And many Warby Parker locations offer comprehensive eye exams starting at $85. It's the perfect time to upgrade your glasses for spring. Buy one prescription pair and get 20% off any additional prescription pairs at warbyparker.com/lockedon. NHL. It's 20% off additional prescription pairs when you go to warbyparker.com/lockedon NHL. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, and a little update on what's going on in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Last night, Dave, we saw the Pittsburgh Penguins stay alive with a 3-2 win over the Philadelphia Flyers to force a Game 6. Maybe one of the most unluckiest goals ever in Dan Vladar's career. Stood as the game winner too, but the hockey gods helping out the Pittsburgh Penguins in that one. So the Pens staying alive, and I guess as we are recording, it is currently, what's the score in that Vegas?
I think it was 3-2 Vegas.
Last I saw it was 3-2 Vegas. Now 3-3.
3-3
Vegas at the start of the third period. So we'll see how that one kind of finishes out. But I want to go back to, which is now a couple nights ago. It's a little bit of old news, I suppose, but we didn't get a chance to touch on it on yesterday's podcast. The overtime winner between the Ducks and the Oilers, very controversial. Obviously, most people know about it by now. It was inconclusively, it was called a goal on the ice.
And they couldn't find enough evidence to overturn the goal call.
Correct. Despite also not conclusively seeing that it was a goal or not a goal. Regardless, the goal stood and Anaheim wins the game. Lots of controversy coming from it. First of all, I guess the first bit of controversy, the fact that it was called a goal on the ice when originally nobody actually called anything, goal or no goal, from the linesman who was behind the net. And then they huddled up and somehow decided to call it a goal on the ice. That's one piece of controversy, and maybe something that maybe tilted the game and tilted the decision one way or another. And the other part is the fact that you couldn't see it cross over the line, but it was still considered a goal regardless. And now Edmonton's in a 3-1 hole down to the Anaheim Ducks. What did you make of that whole hoopla, Dave?
So I get both sides of the argument in this situation. Like, there was no definitive
in a moment.
Like in the moment when I saw the replay, I said, like, that's a goal. Like, that thing is crossed. I know it's hard to tell with the skate over the puck, but you see how much of that has gone over past the skate. Plus, you're also considering that the Oilers player pushed it back underneath the skate. So, like, I know it's a knee-jerk reaction for them to always do that. But I like, you just see how much of that had gone over. And a lot of people have been doing the whole, they know how the diameter of the puck is and where the line is. So they're able to kind of some way draw a line to give themselves an idea of how much of that puck likely went over. I mean, this would be a lot easier if they had just had a camera in the post along the goal line there.
Yeah, in the post or under the ice, or had infrared, tracker, some sort of chip in the puck. Like, there's many ways that they could take all these extracurriculars out of it and make it simple and easy and correct. Ultimately, the NHL, the dinosaurs they are, don't seem to be wanting to make these changes that all the other sports leagues have made now. Like, you look at the first down marker in football, like, that is now kind of electronically based. They got sensors and chips in the footballs to tell how close it was, right? Goal line, same thing.
If they could have a goal line camera with those pylons,
I
think the NHL can get it in the post.
Put them in the posts, right? And not only that, but like in soccer, right? Like, they've got like VAR, but they also have, technology where if the ball crosses over the line, it'll give a buzz to the official and then they know, oh, that ball crossed, that's a goal. In baseball, you've got the ABS system where it's like instant, immediate. You know exactly where that puck, where that pitch was to the inch, to the quarter of an inch. You know where that pitch was. It's tracked that way. So the technology is available to not have this controversy, and that to me is what I hope comes from this. Like I could care less about my opinion. It's a goal. It should have been a goal. And people complaining about it, saying that it should have been overturned or never should have been a goal, or saying it shouldn't have been called a goal on the ice, therefore it would have been inconclusive to reverse to call it a goal. It doesn't matter to me because, look, I can confidently say that was a goal, right? Without having to actually physically see it, I can tell you that was a goal, and that was far enough over the red line where we can infer, based on the fact that we know the size of the puck, we know how big the puck is, it was far enough over the red line that it certainly did not, was still not touching the red. We know this. Although we couldn't see it, common sense tells you this. So I don't have a problem.
No.
I do believe it was a goal. It crossed the line. I don't think that's an issue. However, I will say you can get rid of all this controversy and gray area if the NHL just stops being dinosaurs and figures out how to technologically enhance the sport so that we can avoid all this controversy, because it's possible. It's 2026, Dave. It's 2026. We just went and orbited the moon. You can't tell me you can't put a friggin' chip in a puck, in a rubber puck. Come on. It just has to be done. It's obviously not going to be done by the time the playoffs are over. No. But this is something by next postseason. I really hope that, the multiple GM or owner meetings that they have between now and then, they bring this up, they figure this out, and they get it done.
Here's another thing. So Bill Daly was on the Fan 590, and he said that a number of things that make it more difficult to develop technology that can be relied upon are all the activities going on around the net at that time. Factor bodies, gloves, and sticks, and on occasion pucks are in the way, posts are in the way. It's difficult to have a definitive technology that sees through all the traffic, even in the form of something embedded in the puck. We haven't found a fail-proof technology yet. And I'm like, how did all the other sports? You just brought up how many sports? The MLB has finally allowed for the challenges of strike calls. Never thought really we would get that. That's not done with the human technology. That is done with sensors in an imaginary strike zone where you've got people in the way, and if MLB can figure that out, and they've been on tradition,
is
forever.
It not? You're gonna tell me you can't figure out a way to get an infrared sensor in there, and then you just have infrared sensors below the goal line, and if it touches this point, it's a goal. Or you can at least tell, okay, it's here. You can notice exactly where it is. You're going to tell me that you can't figure that out and then just have an infrared camera underneath or over top? That can't happen? What are we doing?
We're at a point where is the video camera in the right spot in the net? If we're being truthfully honest here, is it in the best spot? Because how many times have we had a goalie put their stick, their glove over the puck to obscure the camera where you can't see it? You know what's the best example now? Offsides. We're now able to get a pretty good idea of what an offside call is because there's technology at the boards that will tell you if a player is onside or offside.
Yeah.
If we're not asking them to reinvent the wheel here, just put one more camera somewhere.
I don't know if it's possible, but it feels like under the ice would be the best way to do it.
Oh, it's probably it'd be tough because of the surface and
shadow. It'll obviously would be dark if the goalie's sitting on it. There's not going to be a whole lot of light. That's why I said I don't know if it's possible or how I'm sure they can make it happen realistically. If they really tried to work at that technology. It's probably out there. They just need to do it. That's
Just
one
get
way.
somebody with a creative mind. I guarantee if you had asked, you throw that out to somebody who's got the brain for it, they could come up with a few options for you.
Yeah.
I think the reason why they haven't, and the reason why they're saying it's not really something that can be done, is because they haven't really had a reason to do it.
No.
It's not really been a conversation until especially in the playoffs. In the regular season, people couldn't care less. Now that it's happened in a playoff game, the stakes are higher. That's going to get more people talking about it.
The thing is, like, it's happened, right? Like, it's not like it hasn't happened before and it hasn't been brought up, but I don't think the technology was there before, right? Like, I'll never forget, like, the Calgary Flames won the Stanley Cup in 2004. Like, people forget, but like, they had that puck went over the line and Pritchard was in like double overtime and they should have won game 6. But, no one noticed that the pad was over the line. And upon review on a replay, you notice, but in real time they didn't, and it was no goal. But if they had some sort of like infrared or they had some sort of puck tracking system on it, like they do in soccer, where when the ball goes over, it gets a buzz, then the referee would have got that buzz and be like, oh, that puck went in. That's a goal. Oh, it's a goal. And the Flames would have ended the Canadian drought, after 11 years instead of being 30 whatever years in to this drought that we're on. So like the technology wasn't there back then, however, but it's here now. So why don't we use it? You know what I mean? Like, let's just use this stuff and get rid of all the controversy. Like if you're going to sit here and tell me that you want review and you want all this and all that because you want to get the calls right, okay, then let's do whatever we can to get the calls right. Don't pick and choose what you want to make sure is correct or incorrect. If there's something that there's already so much gray area in hockey and in sport, things that you can clean up, just do it, right? Like, it's messy enough and confusing enough as is, the sports in certain areas. If you can figure out a solution to a problem, I don't understand why you don't just do it. And I believe the NHL truly could if they put 40 minutes of time towards this. Like,
yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, no, they found a way to do the offside reviews. They found a way to do what.
Always find a way. Problem with them is they're always reactive instead of proactive. It takes something like this happening, like the Matt Duchene goal happening, to actually do something about it. So I do believe that we will in the next year or two see some sort of puck tracking technology that, you'll look back a couple of years later and be like, man, would have been nice to have that in Edmonton. But it's going to be there at some point. It has to. There's no reason for it not to in 2026. There really isn't. All right, Dave. Anything else you wanted to touch on?
No. NHL's dumb. Get yourselves back on track.
Yeah, figure it out. Utah up 4-3, by the way, 10 minutes ago in that game. So whoever's listening to this, you already know the outcome of that game. We'll see what happens.
Ooh, spicy.
Mitch got a helper though. Not at 5-on-5, so still pointless at 5-on-5. Mitch Marner. Just saying on the way out. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. Like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at _Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.